Good morning to our listeners and viewers, and thank you for tuning in to the National Television Network, NTN, and for joining us as well as on our sister stations island-wide. We also say good morning to our listeners and viewers regionally and internationally. You would have noticed that a correspondence was distributed regarding the National COVID-19 Response Telethon, and in the spirit of giving, this telethon will hit the airwaves on April 12th from 2 to 6 p.m. live on the National Television Network NTN and supporting media houses island-wide. It will also be streamed live online. Now joining us in studio to talk about this telethon is Honorable Dominic Fedee, Minister of Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, Ms. Alicia Baptiste, President of the Nurses Association, Dr. Glensford Joseph, Medical Officer of Health, and Joseph, Public Relations Officer of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, and Jermaine William, Assistant Divisional Officer of the St. Lucia Fire Service. At this time, we hand over to Honorable Dominic Fedee.
Well, thank you very much, Joreen. Good morning to all of your listeners, both regionally, internationally, and locally as well, listening to us on the various mediums. Over the past few weeks, we have been receiving a number of requests from St. Lucians overseas, from investors to our countries, from the private sector, from civil society, from companies big and large overseas, as to how they can join the fight, how they can help St. Lucia respond to this global pandemic which is taking place at the moment. And so we came up with the idea of a telethon, an opportunity to give all of our people who care about us to help us in this rather difficult time of our country. And so, as mentioned by Joreen, the date slated for the telethon will be Sunday, April 12th, when we will be broadcasting here at the National Television Network. What I am very pleased with is the reception to this idea. So far, we have seen a tremendous amount of enthusiasm from people all across the world. We have been able to galvanize over $220,000 in donations from individuals, from large corporations, small corporations, and as well from personal contributions from private citizens of our country. The telethon will be done in conjunction with the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, and the funds are going to be raised to help the people on the front line to better serve us at this difficult time. We have to be very mindful of the fact that while nurses and doctors, as we have seen in other countries globally, are in great risk, that we must give them the very best chance of protecting themselves, protecting their lives, protecting their families, and protecting their health. And so gowns are important, and so masks are important, and gloves are important. And so on a daily basis, dealing with patients that are symptomatic require our nurses, our doctors, our police officers who will be enforcing the law, who will be coming into contact. I look at the supermarkets today and the lines are very, very long. And to ensure that that crowd control takes place, our police officers are under tremendous risk of being a victim of a transmission of this virus. And so we must give them the tools that they require. We must give them the very best chance to go out there and serve our country and to serve all of us. The other demographic that's critical are the 2,400 people that are on the paupers list. And we have some 3,000 that are on the waiting list, but because of budgetary constraints, we have a whole host of other vulnerable people that cannot get on to the paupers list. Over the weekend, we did a food pack distribution, and that distribution reached over 10,000 individuals. And so it shows you the level of severity, the level of need in our country, and we must do everything possible to ensure that all of our citizens have the very best chance at surviving. At various times, we will have to do shutdowns and partial shutdowns, and this will indeed make it very difficult for disabled people among us to go to the supermarkets and get food and other essential supplies. We have to have a fund to bring about relief. We have to have an opportunity, an avenue by which we must care for these individuals that are in need. Now, I want to say that this is by no means the government shirking from its responsibility in coming up with the lion's share of the finances necessary to deal with this pandemic. In fact, being on the NEMAC committee as chaired by the Prime Minister, I can tell you that we have already exhausted some $7 million in this fight. Over the past 2 weeks, we were running some 500 hotel rooms as quarantine facilities. And just to run those facilities, we had to provide on a daily basis some 1,500 meals. So for 5 individuals, 3 meals a day. So on a daily basis, we were doing 1,500 meals just for support staff and for nationals who had come back from overseas in high-risk areas and needed to be quarantined. And so therefore, we need all hands on deck. We need to galvanize as many resources as possible so that we can give our people on the front line the best chance to fight this pandemic, the best chance to ensure that St. Lucia has a successful response to COVID-19. And so this is the whole idea. We've reached out to our associations overseas via our embassies in our respective jurisdictions where we've got them. Through the Tourism Authority, we're reaching out to 150,000 returning guests who come to St. Lucia on a regular basis and who are full of love and compassion and care for this country and who are thinking of us and our success and our health at this rather difficult time. We have to ensure that these people are not left out, but they are given the opportunity to participate and to contribute. And so a GoFundMe page will be set up to ensure that we give our global viewers the best opportunity to participate and to help us in this rather difficult time. I want to say as well that we have appointed trustees for the account. Those trustees are former Director of Finance, Ms. Cointhia Thomas, former Director of Finance and present Chairman of the National Insurance Corporation, Mr. Isaac Anthony, the CEO of St. Lucia Social Development Fund, Mr. Allison Matra. We also have appointed former President of the Chamber of Commerce and local businesswoman, Mrs. Charmaine Gardner, as one of the trustees as well on this account. And so what we're doing is to make sure that there's full transparency and what the monies are raised for, that we ensure that it go towards it. I want to thank all those that have already contributed in different means, whether in cash or in kind. We continue to receive donations from a lot of our friends, a lot of our investors, a lot of our business people. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the hotels that have made their facilities available free of cost. All we are paying are the bare bones operating costs, paying utilities and paying the bare bones staff to help maintain the facilities. I want to thank the Cuban government for their continued support in ensuring that this whole initiative is responded to in an adequate manner. As you have been aware, we have over 120 Cuban medical professionals who are here to help our nurses and our doctors to give them that extra bit of support in transitioning to our hospital, but also in responding to this global pandemic, of which St. Lucia has already recorded some 13 cases. I think as well, I want to thank the artists that have come on board, and the list is very long. I want to thank Ricky T. I want to thank Tedison John. I want to thank Linda Chocolate Berthier, Claudia Edwards, Arthur Ale, Shane Ross, Boo Hinkson, and A.G. Simpson. I want to thank Isai Hall and Mr. Cokes, who you all know very well, for agreeing to be MCs and for really donating their services so that we can have a tremendous time on Sunday. The performances will be done pre-recorded, a mixture of live and pre-recorded, so that we can maintain the social distancing protocols as established by the Ministry of Health, so that we can curtail or confine ourselves from the further spread of the corona COVID-19 pandemic. So I want to say, Jerain and the team that are here from the Fire Service and the Nurses Association, and also from the Ministry of Health and the police force, that I want to thank you all for your participation, your enthusiasm, and this is nothing but positive, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Our nurses and doctors continue to remain on the front line every day, and the person who can really tell us about their cause is Nurse Alicia Baptiste, President of the Nurses Association. I now hand over to her.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. With our nurses being on the front line battling COVID-19, we welcome all the assistance we can get to procure the necessary personal protective equipment needed. While many of our colleagues overseas are lamenting their lack of personal protective equipment to care for patients with COVID-19, our assurance in St. Lucia right now is having the necessary personal protective equipment to carry out our duties. If we as the frontliners are protected, our country is protected, and therefore as an association we endorse this telethon.
Thank you, Nurse Baptiste, for your comments. At this time, we invite our Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Glensford Joseph, to the podium.
Good morning, listeners. Good morning, all. On behalf of the Department of Health and Wellness and the entire team responsible for this COVID-19 response, we would like to say we welcome any financial or other support that can allow the Department of Health and Wellness and the other agencies to respond adequately to COVID-19. As of the 7th of April, the world has recorded some 1,364,711 cases of COVID-19, with 76,449 deaths. In St. Lucia, we have recorded to date 14 confirmed cases and no deaths. It is important to note that among the deaths recorded across the world, frontline workers, including police officers, fire service personnel, healthcare workers, and all support staff in the frontline have been impacted, not only with the illness, but also death. As of such, it is important for our frontline workers to be adequately protected with the necessary personal protective equipment needed. It is known globally that there is shortage of the personal protective equipment. And in St. Lucia, there is no difference. As a result, we encourage all to use the personal protective equipment very skillfully. It is clear that many persons, including the general population, are using some of the very equipment needed for the frontline workers, in particular what we call the N95 mask. The N95 mask represents one of many, which the others would be face shields, masks, hoods, gowns, shoe covers, gloves, among other personal equipment. And this must be balanced with adequate supply of soap and water and hand sanitizer of an average 75% alcohol-based. These are very critical medical supplies and equipment that are needed by the frontline workers. And as such, it is important that all corporate citizens, the general public, make their generous contribution towards ensuring frontline workers are adequately prepared to fight this battle against COVID-19. We know in St. Lucia, our nurses, doctors, fire officers, policemen, among others, are tasked with this fight, putting themselves right where the battle lies, facing cases. Some are suspected cases, some later confirmed, and as such, we need to be protected. We will continue to work at this multi-sectoral level. It's not only within the Department of Health and Wellness, but as you can see, we have all agencies, all sectors making their contribution, giving us an opportunity to fight this meaningful fight. We will continue our effort, and we implore the general public to obey all restrictions, regulations, and rules handed down by the government of St. Lucia, including the Department of Health and Wellness. Once again, I must say, we thank all of you for your generous support thus far, and we look forward to ensure that we do not run out of our medical supplies and equipment, and in particular, our personal protective equipment that are needed by our frontline workers. Thank you on behalf of the Department of Health and Wellness and the whole response team.
You just heard from Dr. Glensford Joseph, Medical Officer of Health, outlining what the needs are of our frontline workers. At this time, I call on Mr. Stanislaus Albert, who is the Public Relations Officer of the Police Welfare Association.
Good morning to the citizens of St. Lucia, both on island and out there in the diaspora. My name is Stanislaus Albert. I'm the Public Relations Officer of the Police Welfare Association. We are pleading to persons because, as you know, with COVID-19, we as police officers are in the front line of the battle. We are out there. We are trying to ensure that persons do not come in illegally into the island. We are also trying to maintain persons to keep the social distancing. We also try to see to it that persons keep the curfew which the government has put in place. And in the forefront of doing that, we encounter people on a daily basis, not knowing who is carrying the virus, and we encounter people all the time. The resources that we have to do the job that is needed is very limited. One of the key things that is very much needed at this point in time are masks. Most of the outstations, especially on the other departments, the masks that they were given, because of the number of reports that we receive on a daily basis of persons that other persons see in the various communities, knowing that they were out of island and seeing them back, we on a daily basis have to go to find out whether these persons came in illegally or not. As a result of such, most of our masks has run out. So at this point in time, we are urging persons out there, especially in the diaspora. We know that every other country in the world at this moment is facing the same battle, but we are pleading to persons, those who can assist in one way or the other, to please do so that we can continue fighting the battle of COVID-19 on our island. Thank you.
Just as we prepare for the next speaker, I would just like to take this opportunity to also announce that we're having a nationwide feeding program that will be going to about 15,000 vulnerable individuals at this time. We know that as the hotel industry has shut down, we are working with a select group of hotels to ensure, Joreen, that we reach out to as many as 15,000 of these individuals. So the Prime Minister later on tomorrow will be announcing a stimulus package. So this fundraiser is in no way an effort to try to stimulate or to bring comfort to people who have lost their jobs. This is just an initiative to give people the opportunity to be able to give. I am sure that when St. Lucians hear the Prime Minister's stimulus package for displaced hotel employees, that they will be satisfied with the slate of policy measures that he will be announcing. And so I just want to make that absolutely clear because I know that that was one of the concerns on social media. So the Prime Minister will be announcing his stimulus package later this week.
Thank you, Minister. The St. Lucia Fire Service continues to offer very critical and essential service to St. Lucia in the fight of COVID-19. Joining us at this time is the Assistant Divisional Officer for the St. Lucia Fire Service, Jermaine William.
Good morning, St. Lucians, both here and overseas. On behalf of the St. Lucia Fire Service, I would like to say that the COVID-19 pandemic has posed a challenge far greater than what we could have ever imagined in our lifetime. Firefighters in St. Lucia are usually the first responders. Of late, the police have become the first responders to some of our responses. We have a tremendous challenge before us in securing the PPEs needed to allow us to respond appropriately. As we speak, our officers are under tremendous stress due to the fact that we have additional responses due to COVID-19 and dealing with our regular responses. So my responsibility here today is to urge you and to urge all persons willing and able to contribute to our plight here in St. Lucia. The PPEs are much needed. Our stockpile is actually running very low, and we are in dire need of those pieces of equipment. I also want to say to my fellow firefighters that we hear and understand your concerns, and we are doing all that is within our powers to address them. I want to also say to those overseas who are hearing, especially my fellow firefighters and first responders overseas, we feel your pain and we stand in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. William. I hand you back to Honorable Dominic Fedee for a few more comments.
Yeah, so Joreen, if I can just take this opportunity to thank the long list of volunteers who have already made themselves available. The list is exhaustive, and I thank them. They're in the dozens, and they're from abroad and overseas, and thank you so much, and locally as well. I want to thank the committee members. So our First Lady, who is no stranger to raising funds for the officers through the Officers Ball, our First Lady, Mrs. Raquel Chasney. I want to thank Joreen Georges, our host today, who's also volunteering on the committee. I want to thank as well the CEO of the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Mrs. Beverly Doty. I want to thank Nathania Auger, the Chief Operations Manager of the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. I want to thank this lady so profusely, Michelle Phillip, who in 24 hours organized all the artists and has done telethons with the National Community Foundation over the years. Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank your family for allowing you for serving your country so well. I want to thank local businessman, Mr. Pinkley Francis, who's also the chairman of Events St. Lucia. This is the group of people, along with dozens of other volunteers, who are making this possible. And I'm so proud of the team, and I just want to register this on the record.
Okay, and just to recap, the telethon will be held on April 12, 2020, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., so save the date and time. And the donating platform will be announced a little later, as well as the hotline, as these platforms have not been opened up just as yet. But we're working to have that toll-free for the USA, UK, Canada, Europe, and the rest of the world, as well as have a local platform for donating. Again, like Minister said, this telethon was conceptualized after a number of requests from our local community, our business partners, the diaspora, and Friends of St. Lucia. And this National COVID-19 Response Telethon is simply a formal donating platform. Minister, we have a couple of questions coming in from the press. And one of those is, why now at this time that we're having this telethon?
Well, there's no better time than now. Our country is going through a disaster that we have never seen before, a public health catastrophe that the world has never seen before. And when we look at what's happening in bigger countries with more resources, I think that we continue to see so much uncertainty, so much vulnerability. There's so much panic, there's so much scare, and people just don't know what is going to happen. And so for me, we have to do everything possible to mobilize as much funds as we can. I know that the Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister, has made millions available. I am on a committee with NEMAC, and we have spent already upwards of $6 million in this fight. And the budget continues to escalate, and the expenditures continue to come in. And so government is playing its part, but there are a lot of people who are inspired by what the government is doing, and they simply said, well, give us a chance to be part of it. A lot of the guests who have been to us, travel agents, airline companies, tour operators, cruise line companies, hotel corporations that are overseas that have invested here are saying, we want to be part of it. Joreen, I can tell you that even without our communication, we have seen that there's already some $230,000 raised. And I believe that this number is going to spiral by the time we get to Friday. Come Sunday, our donations are going to go through the roof. And I predict a very successful fundraiser. It's one that I am proud of, that the team have put together very quickly. And I think that there's no better time than now.
And we also understand that not everyone will be able to donate at this time. A word of encouragement can go a long way. In whatever way you can help as a citizen, that would be welcome. Minister, we have another question. The taxes that are being collected on diesel and gasoline are set aside to help combat COVID-19. will these funds also complement the efforts of the National Telethon?
The truth is that, you know, with the devastation of the tourism sector, which brings in the lion's share of government revenue, you know, if you count those numbers, you would see that government's revenue, there's a big hole, there's a gaping hole in being able to finance our budget. That's why we have delayed its presentation. We're now at April 1, a new financial year has started, and the government hasn't gone out to announce the budget. One, we believe that we need to first be realistic to see what the numbers are, and to be truthful to ourselves and to face the reality that's hitting us. And so, yes, we are making sure that a lot of our resources are going to go towards the development of our response to this and our continued response, which is absolutely necessary. So the public can be assured that the government will continue to do its part through the various revenue streams that it collects, but then as well B, that every single dollar raised via the telethon this week on to Sunday, that is going to go towards bringing relief to the poor and vulnerable among us. We've got some 24,000 people on the paupers list and over 3,000 more on the waiting list that can't get on. But not because they're not on the paupers list, it means that they're not vulnerable. And then as well, we've got thousands of other vulnerable citizens among us who have not even bothered to apply to be on the paupers list. What we have got to do is to make sure that we reach those people. What we've got to do is to make sure that we reach our nurses, our doctors, our police officers, our firefighters, and all of those people who are risking their lives at this rather difficult time, so that to ensure that the rest of us are safe, we have to make sure that they too are safe. And so the PPE supplies are absolutely critical. We've got to make sure that they've got masks, they've got gloves, and they've got gowns, and these supplies can be changed on a regular basis. Unless this happens, then I think that we're putting them at risk. And we cannot put them at risk, because if we put them at risk, we're putting all of us at risk.
Thank you, Minister. So again, the fight against COVID-19 is a global life-saving effort, and this virus has impacted all sectors of St. Lucia, and it continues to impose heavily on healthcare. So again, save the date, Sunday, April 12, 2020, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we just want to say thank you to the team at GIS, our Principal Information Officer, Davina Lee, and her team for really supporting the cause and having this command center here where all of the information regarding COVID can be disseminated. And NTN is also going to be very instrumental in disseminating the live telethon. So again, we want to say thank you to all of our artists, Ricky T, Tedderson John, Linda Chocolate Berthia, Claudia Edward, Arthur Allen, Shane Ross, Ronald Buhingson, and A.G. Simpson, who will be doing an original piece by Izai Hall. And our host again, Izai Hall and the famous Cokes. So I want to say thank you for joining us again. Thank you for listening and for viewing. And we look forward to your donations on Sunday as we aim to reach our goal to support our frontline workers in providing the necessary personal protective equipment to combat the fight with COVID-19. Thank you.